So, Simon,
Pad, how you doing?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
Mega. Yeah, I'm very cold. Hence the hat.
Are you sure you're not broadcasting from your spacecraft?
Yeah, the command center. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
So we're all good. Yeah, everything's good. It's we're trying to, like everyone, trying to find meaning in this strange weirdness. But yeah, both of us, my wife and I, my wife's a musician as well, so we're both kind of keeping ourselves busy, and actually pretty lucky to live up here. It's a beautiful place, so we can walk and be in nature, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Well, judging by your amazing photographs of the surroundings, you do live in an enchanted area. But there is a larger question at hand, Simon. A larger question, and that is, what can't you do musically? I mean, we're all so familiar with these amazing videos that you put out where it's featuring you with you and you playing along with yourself, and it's incredible. Really, the question a lot of people ask is, what can't you do?
Yeah, well, like everyone, I guess we've got our self-consciousness, and we're well aware of our weaknesses and stuff, and it's we're all just trying to improve and get better. And when we hear things that we really like and we have a kind of an idea about where we want to go, then that's what we work in. That's what I try and. That's to answer your question literally. I mean, I don't like, I mean, just play music at the end of the day. But to answer your question literally, when I hear something that I really like, I want to do that. So I gravitate towards that, and that's the kind of, and we're all focusing on smaller things, minutiae, to a greater detail, I guess. I mean, all of us have got our things that we focus on more, and perhaps we're better at those types of things, and other things catch our interest, and those things become part of the practice routine also. But really, like the idea of, well, I mean, I've always played lots of instruments. It's not been anything I've particularly consciously thought about, and I don't consciously think about it still. It's just I really like playing bass. So I play bass, and I learned to love playing piano, and I heard piano players, and I that's why I did that. And drums I played since I was 12, and I only really learnt drums to get girls, but actually that didn't work. It was the cooking that did that for me. But the drums, that's the reason I picked up drums. But then, I just absolutely love playing the drums, and I absolutely love playing guitar. It's just that's the thing that that sort of drives me with that. I mean, it's not. I don't get up in the morning and say, right, I need to practice an hour on the bass, an hour on the piano, or an hour on this, that, and the other. It's purely down to just wanting to do it. And I'll have like 2 or 3 weeks where I won't pick up the drumsticks at all. And then I'll have another month when I hardly ever play guitar. Like last month, for example, I just played drums. I've got 2 albums I'm working on, and for people, remote projects and various other things, and it's involved a lot of drums. So the more you do of it, the more kind of addictive it gets, and you kind of get more into detail with those, with playing, and your chops get better, and you feel better about your playing, and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a sort of peak and trough thing with me with the instruments that I kind of tend to end up playing more. Like, occasionally some of the gigs that I have are producing backing tracks for educational websites, which involve producing tracks minus one instrument, so players can rehearse. And that involves playing every instrument in the same day, which is quite hard, actually. Because it's like method acting, when you pick up a bass, you have your idea, you have your suit, that you get out of the cupboard, which is your bass player suit, and you put that on, and you all of the kind of submodalities and details and minutiae with bass playing, that kind of comes back to you. And the same with guitar. So having to do that within a very short space of time, when you if you got 3 hours to produce a track, that can be quite challenging. Kind of jumping between roles like that. You're like a shapeshifter in a sense.
You must have really spent a concentrated time on each one of those instruments to get to the level that you're at. Like, I don't think that there's not a multi-instrumentalist that plays the genre that you play, that we play, all of us in this sort of community here, at the level that you're playing at. So I do, as a multi-instrumentalist myself, even though I'm not playing bass, I'm playing, traditional Irish instruments. It requires that attention. I mean, if you're not on the instrument is sitting on the floor, in its stand or in its case, not getting played. So you must have had these very concentrated periods of time where you were ultra focused on the bass or ultra focused on the piano, and obviously improvising. You're not just playing, a Beach Boys song. Not that there's anything wrong with the Beach Boys, but you're improvising as well across many genres.
My parents are both musicians. They're both professional musicians. My dad's a trumpet player, and my mum's an accompanist. So I was in a 100% immersive musical environment from when I was born till still now. Every time I go back there's a music room there. That dad had a room aside for that. So he had brass ensembles, mum had choirs. I used to get up to the sounds of Mahavishnu. I'd go to sleep to the sounds of Bach and, various things. So it was a very immersive environment with the music thing. But actually that work ethic, even though it wasn't, my parents aren't really authoritarian with the whole practice thing. I didn't have cricket bats smashed over my head when I didn't get notes right. The work ethic and the idea of dawn till dusk, play, practice, get better, that was kind of normal. That was normalized for me. And so my sister...
I'm sorry?
Yeah, my sister's also, although she ended up doing something else, she also ended up being a good trumpet player as well. So, I mean, all of our family, Gemma's family are the same as well. I mean, my father-in-law's from Northern Ireland, so, I mean, well, you know about the culture over there with music. So it's, so, I mean, and again, Gemma's sister is a very, very good singer indeed. So, it's like that kind of what you're saying with the focus and the kind of having to work on stuff. I think it's sort of become normal over how we've learned. I mean, occasionally I was made to practice stuff. I mean, I grew up as a trumpet player, actually. I haven't played for many years, but I actually did a music degree on trumpet. So that's where my kind of knowledge of reading music and playing in big ensembles and brass bands and orchestras, that kind of stuff, that's all my experience comes from trumpet.
And that explains the brain damage.
yeah, sort of, kind of like asphyxiation in brass bands trying to play high notes every Saturday morning. Yeah,
I don't see how you do it. I love the trumpet, I really do, and I loved Witten's playing during J Mood and all that whole part of his career, and I was thinking, well, maybe I could play trumpet, and then I just remembered seeing all the trumpet players in school, like their faces and the blood vessels bulging out, and I was like, maybe not.
Yeah, it's too much like hard work. That's why I stopped actually in the end, because it was I loved the trumpet. I love listening to trumpet players, and I love the camaraderie with brass players, and there's something that I can't describe, which is so amazing about playing trumpet. But to have to practice for at least an hour and a half a day to be able to do the things that you want to do, I mean, I just had too many other things that I was doing, really. And with guitar, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, if you practice, I do actually practice quite a lot on the guitar, but it doesn't feel like work like it does with trumpet. Like trumpet is like, set the alarm, go to the gym, do your reps. It's really kind of like quite physical. With guitar, it's like you're straight into music.
And back to what you were saying with with your environment. So you grew up, and it was part of the norm to work hard. It probably didn't even seem like work, at the time. And you were playing multiple instruments, and with that work ethic, ingrained in you. Plus, obviously, you have a very good head on your shoulders, and we see these videos. A lot of people just see the videos. They don't have any idea about the work that went in and still goes in behind all of that. And I would imagine, even now that you say that you put your guitar down for a month or what have you, you're still, first of all, you're at a particular level that, a couple of weeks and you're back into fighting shape. And do you think that this sort of multi-instrumentalism is a possible endeavor for somebody who didn't start out playing drums at 12, who didn't, grow up in an environment where they were going to sleep to Bach or waking up to Mahavishnu?
Yeah, great question. Because implied within that is, well, the thing is about it, whether it's possible. Well, obviously, it is. If you're a good bass player, you'll be a good guitarist. If you and your knowledge and internal architecture and visualization of how notes, how the notes you want to produce go forward, you can apply that to anything. I mean, it's merely a technical thing. If you took a professional musician and gave them a year, at pain of death, gave them a year to become do you know? Well, yeah. Hey, everyone's got their motivations, but my point is, if is it possible? Yes, of course it is. But the key thing is the actual kind of deep urge and love to do that. The reason I pick up a bass is because I absolutely love playing bass. I mean, I cannot imagine not being able to play bass. I just love it. I love everything about it. I love the control you have as a bass player. I love the feel that you can generate with your fingers. I love the frequency. With drums, there's nothing that compares to it in a completely different way. Nothing that compares to being the absolute epicenter of the groove and the absolute epicenter of all of the percussive ideas that a group will be working on. With a guitar, there's nothing that compares to having that ability to control the harmony and to influence the musicians around you. Nothing. I mean, I've been in loads of groups, and I played bass and played piano, and pianos, I'll get into that in a bit, but with bass and drums particularly, and other lead instruments like trumpet, you don't have that ability to sort of lead rhythm sections like you do with guitar, like you can with a harmony, with rhythms. There's so many things. So there's everything has its jewel. Every instrument has its kind of real jewel that I'm it's like I've been watching Lord of the Rings, the precious. So I kind of gravitate towards each of these things in each of the different instruments. They have a real allure to me, and it's like, so to answer your question, yeah, obviously the technical stuff, but if you've learned to play, to play Rachmaninoff piano concertos, you can learn how to play guitar or learn how to play a trumpet. Crikey, it's not difficult for someone who's got the work ethic to be a good professional musician. The technical aspects are the easiest bit. I think, it's whether you want to do that or not. And a lot of people are like, well, it's like, well, do you really want to play the sax as well as guitar? Do you really want to do that? If you did, then maybe you would have done. Or maybe there'll be a point where you hear like some Steve Coleman, or you'll hear some you'll hear something that you really want, that really kind of piques your attention, and you'll be like, well, I fancy trying that. And you see that quite a lot, especially with guys our age, you'll see guys kind of diversifying a bit and trying new stuff. It's like, a lot of players will do that because, well, at least they'll use the excuse. It's like, well, I'm a drummer. I want to improve my drumming, so I'm gonna try some bass playing because I've heard that playing bass improves my drumming. That's not why I play bass, and it's not why I play anything. I only play bass because I love playing bass. So it's a little more complex than that. It's not, the technical side of things is a red herring, really. I mean, anyone can do that. Anyone can. It's like if you've got a gun pointed to your head and you've got a year to learn how to play Giant Steps, then you'll learn how to play giant steps. Obviously, else you'll die. But the other side of it is, if you
does it have to be that extreme? Is that how it feels for you? Is that how it feels for you? Here, let me write this down. Here, lie back on the couch there, and you're feeling like you're gonna die. Okay, tell me about this feeling.
Yeah, sort of lay back on the Shay Long.
I know how you. Yeah, I do know how you feel like with piping or with playing the concertina or what have you. I feel the same way. I enjoy playing it, so I play it.
Right.
And there's times when your career says, "Hey, you're going to be playing this instrument for this half of a year. You're going to be focusing on this." Depending on the work that comes in. Now, I did notice that something very funny. That in 2016, when you were playing stadium jazz, I believe you made a video of yourself playing stadium jazz. While you were playing all the instruments, while you were playing the drums, you were even directing traffic. You have to watch that back, because in the middle of yourself playing, you're like looking through the window and you're like,
Okay.
And I was like, Jesus, he's a traffic cop too.
Yeah, that's called having kids. That's yeah. My kids like, like, I don't have a lock on the door in here. My kids come in here all the time. It's quite funny actually, because I'm not heavy on my kids at all. They just, I'm happy for them to be happy. And if they walk in, a lot of the times it improves things. It's like well, we're both the same. Jammer and I are both the same. We just love any enthusiasm that our kids have towards music. We just love. I never force it. We're not pushy with that stuff. I mean, like, my son's a choral scholar at school, so I mean, he sings and stuff, but we never forced him. It's always been like sort of guided by him. He has a guitar and occasionally he plays it. And he's like, that's fine. I'm not going to get heavy on him. There's certain things.
That's wise. That's wise.
I mean, I'm not naive either. I'm not I sort of, I think there's a fine line with kind of, well, I don't want to get into the whole parenting thing, but like, discipline.
Hey, we can start a parenting channel as well.
Yeah. We call it, Jazznet or something. Yeah. Jazz Mum's Net.
Jazz Discipline.
Yeah.
So this, obviously my channel is primarily a guitar channel, although I would like to have other kinds of musicians on the channel, but you're one of the things that I know from the interviews that we've done before that I've never been able to publish was you have a very, God, I hate using this word, organic way of looking at improvisation. In other words, you truly just go for it, and you don't have a problem with posting mistakes.
No, not at all.
And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, about your courage.
Well, hey, listen. I mean, there's two origins for that. Firstly, if you go and see a gig, well, there's two. Actually, it's slightly different, because posting and gigging are two separate things. Although the live streaming thing is a sort of an interesting kind of mix of the both. But I've never really been keen on the whole. Well, actually, it's better now. Ever since Instagram extended their post to 1 minute, it's jettisoned a whole bunch of 15-second glory hunters.
Where?
Yeah, I know. But
out into space? Or...
Yeah, who knows? But I mean, that was a good thing in my book, because I think it brought out the worst in players, and it possibly encouraged. I'll use that word that since you love it so much. It possibly encouraged non-organic kind of improvisation, because it's this whole cherry picking thing of playing for 2 hours and then kind of like going through it with a fine tooth comb and then slicing out bits of, that, and then sticking it on the, there's something quite sort of hedonistic about that, and it's never really sat well with me, that stuff. I've forgotten the question. I'll be honest. I've forgotten the question. I just got talking about Instagram.
Have some more wine, Simon.
Yeah.
More wine. Well, I simply remember you made some kind of post about those people who play for 30 seconds.
Right.
And then every time I posted a 30-second clip, I could just, for some reason, the picture of your face just was right there. Or just like a meme of you going like this. Only 30 seconds. But then I would talk back to it and I'd be like, well, that's all I got, Simon. 40 seconds. And that's a lot.
Hey! I mean, like now it's interesting because there's a 1 minute limit on that, which I think is interesting because, like a lot of jam sessions you go to, like players will play 2 choruses and that'll be a minute. So I mean that's realistic. I mean in a real world situation, a 1 minute solo is not beyond the realms of. I've seen really good players play for 1 minute and then hand over some horrible hospital pass to someone else in the band. Like it's like follow that kind of thing, you know. And so I think 1 minute is a reasonable unit of measurement for improvisation, because like you know a lot of the things I've done on YouTube and a lot of my when I'm with private students is this idea of filling that space. So being aware, like arbitrarily, you know, a jazz solo is what 2.5 to 4 minutes, depending on the kind of context. Mm-hmm. I mean, 4 minutes is a huge amount of time to fill with stuff that is going to be interesting and complex enough to maintain a listener's attention. You know, even 2.5 minutes is a really nice. That's kind of like, I mean, I grew up playing in big bands. Like you get like 1.5 minutes. That's like an Instagram unit of measurement. A big band solo is like a 32 bar solo, maybe repeated the second time you'll have backings underneath. So it's almost implicit that you've got to build your solo up. Because otherwise, like the sax players backing you will, you know, they'll give you. So that's a realistic unit of measurement for improvisation. So that's a kind of, I'd say that was a positive thing. Hey, listen, you know, it is what it is. I just, you know, what you said then, it's interesting because I used to think of Miles. Like, it's like, what would Miles think of this 15-second thing? And do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah. Can you imagine? Yeah,
I think he'd have a gas time with it and just go bang.
But one note, yeah.
Yeah. One note.
Yeah. So I mean, like, you know, it's all good. And the whole mistakes thing is, I mean, there's 2 things to that. Firstly, it's you know, playing. If you're improvising, you're gonna. I think if you're trying to plumb the depths or kind of push the ceiling or like wriggle your elbows to find out where you are, you're occasionally going to stab your elbow and hurt yourself, and you're going to find the limits. And if you're not plumbing the limits of what you're capable of, I think that's something that's something that maybe people should be working on. And if you're always operating within your comfort zone, and you're only ever playing stuff that you know you can pull off, that doesn't sit comfortably with me. I could never manage that. I could never live like that. So you know, the offset of that is, or I should say, the result of that is, I'm trying stuff, and I'm ballsing it up, you know, and it's like people seeing it. I don't know if they see that, you know, if it's an obvious one, fine, ballsed up, whatever. I'm not self-conscious about that at all. It doesn't bother me in the slightest, because
so it won't make you go back and try and do another take and another take and another take and another take until there's nothing. Well, no speed bumps.
Well, maybe. I mean, if you're trying to achieve something, it depends what you're trying to achieve. Like on a live stream, nah, just let it fall, you know? Like boxers, well, you know about this stuff, you know, boxers, even the best, they'll get clipped, and they got to box themselves out of a corner, you know, and it's like, and they're in front of everyone. There's no hiding it. Even the best guys, you know, they'll just, so it's kind of, if you've got the opportunity to record, and you want to record a solo that's absolutely bang on, and it's, you know, and you have the opportunity to record 20 takes and take the best one, brilliant. And I do it all the time. If you've got the opportunity to sit and really nail something, really nail it to the bone, excellent. But on a live stream, nah, no way.
What about an Instagram post?
Yeah, well, like Instagram posts, my posts, I don't really do much on Instagram. It's mostly landscape photography these days. But like, if like my jazz stuff on Instagram is usually just ideas. Like, I had a pal of mine at college who used to talk about there's these two approaches. You either jump into the river and you follow the river down to the sea, or you stand on the bank and you look at the river and the way that it moves. And that's that's how I look at my Instagram stuff. It's like, I'll have one idea and I'll just focus on that one little thing. Maybe it's a pattern, a rhythmic thing, a certain style of clave thing that I'm working on, or whether it's like if it's just like the Krantz albums, when he took basically just segmented a gig, the best bits from a whole tour, and just made an album out of it. And I really like that approach, like the Holsworth thing. It's like they're not really compositions; they're just really nice chords and him improvising over them. It's like there's no rules with this stuff. It's like if you've got that idea of the sound, like the Krantz thing is really interesting because some of those tunes are like 20 seconds long, but they're
Which record?
Oh, it's 2 Drink Minimum, I think.
Oh yeah, that famous one, yeah.
But it's like I might be wrong there. Actually, I might be wrong. It's one of the albums is like really famous for that because it's like a whole tour and he just took the best bits of it, and it sounds like it's recorded on like a Zoom recorder or something. It's not tremendously high def, but occasionally there's like 30 seconds of really interesting stuff, and then bam, you're into another track that's like 7 minutes of really heavy improv, and then another 2-minute thing.
Okay, so what if some guy is listening to you right now and they're like, well, Simon said to just go for it. I'm just going to go for it, but they don't. How could it go wrong?
Well, I guess if you're having a bad day and things aren't rolling off your fingers, it becomes obvious. I mean, I've started live streams and ended up kind of regretting it. Really, I think if I think 50% of the time you pick up the instrument and everything kind of feels nicer, and 50% of the time it feels a bit hard work, and I think like the further down the line I go, like you're probably the same. It's like you kind of get an instinct for where you're at, you can kind of calibrate, because those sorts of things are dependent on lots of things, like even the temperature in the room, like, does it sound good? Is the guitar is bent in the night and it's feeling a bit heavy on the neck or whatever? So a lot of those sorts of things you can kind of get used to. It's like, well, maybe I'm not feeling it today. And I've started a few live stream things that I thought, nah, bugger it, and I just push stop. A lot of those things are still up there. I'm not.
I had a night like that last night, and I was just told just leave it up. But so it's all right if people, we're kind of breaching another topic, the whole YouTube thing. Before we go off into that, you play with a lot of technique on the guitar, and there are people that are big fans of yours that want to be able to do that. So before I ask you how, maybe if in the question of me asking you how, can you also include if you're using any special kind of approach? Are you an alternate picker? Are you a legato player? Do you like it all? And then how can somebody get to that level of having that kind of physical fluidity that you have with the instrument?
Yeah. Okay. So the technical side of stuff is merely a toolbox. So the toolbox is there, and you use the tools to achieve the job that you have in mind at the start. If you have in mind that you want to play fast and that's your language, and then maybe listen, we all talk in our own way, and that's kind of the same. I always think the same musically. Talking and the way we structure sentences gives us a clue about how our minds are working. Usually, the people that are kind of thinking at a kind of a faster tempo and sort of maybe a bit more less philosophical, shall we say, and more kind of like if they have a higher pace of internal dialogue, and usually that transfers through to the instrument as well. So sometimes that's the whole fast thing is an exteriorization of people's kind of thought processes and how they're kind of thinking and structuring thoughts in their mind. Like if you're improvising, usually that's a good sign of if you're improvising well, that's a kind of good sense of how someone's thinking. That's a great key with people like Schofield, for example. Not really a fast player, but like you can sort of get a sense of how he was thinking. So I mean, like the fast thing is an interesting one. Yeah, I can talk about practicing. I mean, the whole practice thing is an interesting one.
How did you get the chops? Like just right to the core. How do you do it? How do you get from I can't play fast, I can't play really up tempo well, to now I can do it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've sort of always, I played metal when I was a kid, mainly mainly metal, and that involved tons of kind of tapping and fast scales and stuff. So alternate picking and kind of having a right hand position. Sorry, this is the wrong camera for this.
Yeah.
But having a right hand position that had a good sort of elastic link to the body of the guitar, so you could use that. You could use that natural elasticity to get the fast kind of up and down picking, the alternate picking. But then with the left hand, I think for me, well, I can only talk personally, but like when I'm feeling comfortable playing fast, it's usually my left hand is feeling relaxed. Now there's a combination of like, maintaining a good level of practice. I think at least half an hour a day, and structuring that practice in a very, very focused way. So like people think about, if I were to say, well, you've got to play for half an hour a day, there's a big difference between playing for half an hour a day and practicing, absolutely practicing. So like, like a circuit training, very focused, very structured, and, with a really strong goal and an end game, all of that kind of stuff. There's a massive difference because like I'll practice for 20 minutes, but I'll play for like 3 or 4 hours in a day. And there's a big difference between the two things. Like with the practicing thing, I'm big on, because your brain doesn't really take in information beyond about 3 or 4 minutes. So any new stuff or anything that you're trying to learn, there's no point sitting there trying to bash your head against the wall for an hour. It just won't, it will actually have the opposite effect. I've talked about a bit of this on my YouTube lessons, but like 5 minutes, very focused stuff. Actually, John Hollenbeck talked about this, like practicing focus. So you actually practice focusing your mind on the notes and the technique. And it's much harder than you might think, because you're like, a lot of people will manage it for like 10 seconds and be like, well, all right, we'll start again. But actually focusing on that for 10 seconds solidly on a technique and a scale and focusing on getting everything absolutely perfect, damn, that's a hard thing. And like to do that beyond 20, 25 minutes, that's difficult. So I usually recommend, like in terms of practice, and I will get back to the speed thing, but like in terms of practice, 20, 25 minutes is really the absolute optimum, I think, because then you can segment things down. You can write 5 minutes on scales, 5 minutes on sight reading, 5 minutes on chords, 5 minutes on you can pick where you want to be. It's like, right, I want to be good at this thing, right? And we'll set ourselves a timeline of 2 weeks or whatever that will be. And then you can extrapolate your practice from that. So you draw out literally like a 3D model in front of you. You have that end goal there, and you are there. And these are the amount of days that we've got to fill between there and there. That's what we're going to slot in. So we're going to do 5 minutes of only picking, down picking, getting it very accurate. Then we're going to do another 5 minutes the next day on alternate picking, getting absolutely 100% accurate with the metronome at 3 different tempos, blah, 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 scale and the scale. And you can fill that time out, aimed very specifically at that end goal. Goal setting is absolutely critical with practice as well. It's very easy to sit down and go, right, I'm going to practice, I'm going to practice in a vague sense. And you play a few scales, you work on chords, but actually goal setting is incredibly important. And it will actually provide you with motivation for your practice as well. So you'll be like, right, okay, there's actually a reason to do this. There's a reason for me to be just trying to downpick at 200 beats per minute for 3 minutes at a time. Because the next day, I'll be able to do it 5 beats per minute more, and I'll feel more relaxed about it. And actually, when I get 3 days in, when I change to alternate picking, my up picks will be better as well. So that's that kind of like, that's how I extrapolate the whole idea of goal setting, having a timeline. I mean, like psychologists call it timeline therapy. So it's like you have this kind of idea of like 6 months, a year. So when I'm with my students, I'll be talking about very specifically about setting goals, not just with short-term stuff, but actually 6 months, a year, 5 years, and even 10 years down the line. So it's like, well, okay. And it's mind-boggling the amount of people who don't consider that far ahead. It's like, okay, where do you see yourself in a year? It's like, do you see yourself sitting there doing the same thing? Or do you have maybe a new guitar? Do you have like 6 tracks on Bandcamp that you're selling? Do you have a YouTube channel? 5 years down the line, do you have two albums under your belt? Are you did you have a goal, an ambition to play with that musician? And if so, did you play with that musician or these types of musicians? And there's all sorts of peripheral stuff as a musician and as a professional and as a performing artist in general that you can fill this. It's like an Argos catalog. I don't know if you get Argos in the States, but like it's just some catalog store, and it's like, right, okay, it's great fun. It's like, right, in 6 months' time, I'd like that. I'd like to play with that person. I'd like to have had a lesson with that person. I'd like this guitar, and I'd like to have written a song. In a year's time, it's like, right, I'd like to be in the studio. I'd like to picture myself in the studio doing this thing. Like, right, in 3 years' time, I see myself as an established musician. I have a website. I have 20,000 followers on YouTube, and blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, it's like a catalog.
So you're very goal-oriented. You tend to be very goal-oriented is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, for me, that's the fun bit. It's like, especially with producing music, it's like my idea of like listening to the sound back is really important. So having kind of a very solid idea of how I want something to sound, and specifically the energy of the thing. Branford Marsalis talked about that. It's like, how would you try and encourage, like jazz Joe Normals to go and watch a jazz gig, and they'd sit there and probably, what tip would you give something like average Joe off the street to go into a jazz gig and enjoy it? It's like, well, pick up on the energy of it, on the energy of the improvisers, and that's really true. And I've always done that with live gigs. It's like eating a really nice meal, going to see a good gig. You pick up on the energy of that stuff. Do
you really do 300 BPM down picks only, and then up picks only, and then?
Oh well, it's a means to an end. It's like if I had something that required that, then that would be a solution that I would have. I mean, I have people coming to me with all manner of. It's like, can you help me with this? Well, you have the same. It's like, can you help me with this? And it's like, okay, fine. So I take it as my responsibility as a teacher to devise pragmatic and not only relevant ways of solving that problem, but hopefully fun ways as well. So you're always trying to frame that within a musical setting as well. So like, with scale exercises, you always make them relevant. So you maybe play them to a nice backing track, or like rather than play with a metronome, you play it with a really good drum loop. So it doesn't feel like you're kind of like with a gun to your head the whole time. Like, so it actually feels like it's music. Yeah.
What is it with you with that gun to the head? You're gonna die if you don't play the diminished exercise correct.
Yeah.
My God. Yeah. You're like, yeah, I grew up nice. Everything was cool. If you put a gun to your head. But yeah. Okay, so are you the kind of technician that believes that you practice so it's relaxed, you interim up the metronome so you stay relaxed, you're still doing it, but then there's that time in your practice where you just want to push and you want to just go just crank that metronome up and see if you could do 16 notes at 170. Just try it. Are you of that mind, or do you believe that, look, it's probably going to be sloppy then anyways, why would you do that? Just stay within your physical limits.
Yeah, well, that's like a red rag to a bull to me, and I think it is with a lot of people. It's like I'd much rather go. I'd much rather try and go for that than not. And actually, a lot of the time, I think probably athletes. I don't know. I'm not an athlete, quite clearly, but
I wouldn't have noticed.
But a lot of athletes will find that they need that. They need the stadium and they need the crowd to do their best stuff. Okay, so, and I think like that is transferable to musicians as well. I mean, especially with guitarists, we're absolute terrors for sitting in rooms in front of mobile phones, doing selfie videos and all that kind of stuff. It is what it is. But the I talk about this quite a bit on the YouTube channel, like getting learning from performers and how they kind of sometimes produce their best stuff when they're on stage in front of an audience and having that adrenaline rush. You can achieve that. You can have that. You can imagine the audience, or sometimes you can just hit the live button on your phone, and then you've got an audience, and then you're in the shit, and you've got, and then you have that all of a sudden you have that kind of that reality check that you're in front of real people listening to you, and there is a tangible difference between performing on a live stream and performing in front of people at a gig. Like doing a gig is far more enjoyable, by a factor of 10. It's way more, and sometimes just seeing the whites of people's eyes and seeing when you play a certain phrase and you see people enjoying it, or maybe see the other players that you're playing with kind of, interacting with that stuff, it can really feed you. There's something that's unexplainable about that, that you don't get with live stream. But then again, live streaming is what it is. You use the technology, you either play to a blank phone or you play to some people. And like, I've had a really good experience with live streaming. There's some lovely, I think the guitar community is really nice on the whole. I think it's kind of like an anathema, really, with like Facebook and social media can be very brutal, in all sorts of ways. But with, the guitar community is I found really good and really nice and really supportive.
Okay, well, before we talk about the guitar community, you're telling me that you do go for that red cape. You will try and push your technique. And via that sort of thing, you get better. Is that what you're saying, or?
Oh, hey, well, listen. You saw that thing recently. That meme about there's a meme about having a ship. It's like the ship is safest when it's in the harbor, but that's not what it was designed to do. You know what I mean? It's like, why are you spending 2 hours a day playing and stuff if you're not going to try? If you're not going to sort of trying to wriggle, get some lateral room and sort of figure out what you can do. I mean, you only really find meaning when you're kind of pushing at that cold face with stuff.
Do you transcribe?
Nah. I do. The only reason I don't do much of it anymore is just because I've got 2 kids and I'm trying to pay the bills and all that kind of stuff, and I'm trying to play a lot. And when I was at college, I transcribed a huge amount. I've got a stack of stuff I've got like mountains and mountains of transcriptions that I've done up in the attic, and I always recommend it. And I would do it, and I transcribe stuff when I'm asked to produce backing tracks in the style of such and such a track. I'll transcribe the track, and so I do it on a kind of superfluous scale these days, but not in
and we should mention also that for people that are watching who don't understand what transcribing is it's actually a jazz colloquialism that doesn't necessarily mean you're writing it down. Transcribing could mean you're figuring it out. I always like to say that, because you never know who's tuning in, and somebody might think, oh my God, I can't read music, but I've got a really good ear. Right. So, and there's loads of people like that, or their reading music is a weakness. So, it's just figuring it out by ear. And I think that's, for me, it's been a great way to push my technique forward. For example, I totally revised my technique 3 years ago, and I'm paying the price for it. I'll probably be paying the price for it for the rest of my life, but it's allowed me to do new things. And the way I'm trying to fill in the holes is by transcribing, and hopefully someday the holes will be partially filled in.
Well, the value in transcription that I found was actually, and it suited the way that I sort of thought about music, and that was, I could see the shapes and the phrases very clearly in no uncertain terms. Like when I was transcribing some Kenny Garrett, I would see the latitude of where he went, and I'd see the kind of phrase length at where he went. I mean, and actually it was there. The penny dropped with me with phrasing in particular. When I was transcribing Kenny Garrett, it's like, oh, hold on, he's a horn player. And it was obvious. Sometimes it's like you got the jigsaw puzzle and just one piece goes in. It's like, oh, God. Yeah. It's like, he's a horn player. So, like, they play phrases and they have to take a breath. So it's like, oh, right, that's why those phrases are that length. Because the dude has to stop for breath. It's like, and like, why would you think that as a guitarist or a pianist? Because we don't have to take a breath before we play stuff. So if you're trying to play
Yeah.
like a sax player, or if you're trying to like, you know, or if you're trying to kind of take characteristics of horn players and sax trumpet players or flute players, you know, that's a key thing. It's like sing with you when you play, and you'll kind of have to breathe, and it means you have to take your fingers off the fretboard and then start the phrase again. Sometimes it's those little things, and that I wouldn't have known unless I'd been transcribing a Kenny Garrett solo and seen where he stopped. And it's like, and I see these blocks of notes, and then a gap, and then a block of notes, and it's like,
You would think as a trumpet player you'd be able to figure that out, but I told you it's the brain damage.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. It's like oxygen deprivation, but you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, transcribing, like this, one of your previous guests, Josh, like he's a master at that stuff. You know, I doubt he writes that stuff down, but he learns it by ear. You know, and it's like, and there's a few people. In fact, I remember you like not taking too kindly to some guys doing that in several years ago.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Now check that. I was just talking about it. Who was I talking about it with? I won't mention the name. We all know him. I was saying that when it first came on the scene, like on the social media scene, I was like, "What is this? This is like something you do in your room, and." You know, I don't know. At worst, you do it at a jury at school or something like that. But why are you like showing it? Is just kind of like a flex I guess, what are you actually flexing? You're showing that, yeah, you put the time in. That's admirable. Yeah, you can play the transcription along with the person and make it sound pretty close. That's really admirable. I always saw that as behind the scenes work, but then I became corrupted and I put out my own transcription of Skunk Funk, you know, the famous one that now a lot of people are doing that I've seen. And that was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
It seriously was the hardest thing I ever done. And I gained so much out of it. And I only posted it because I thought I'm committing to this, so I actually have to finish it. I got on the jam of the week. I got a lot of likes, so that was it's a shame I couldn't cash that in at all, you know. But the real truth of the matter is when I put that out on YouTube, I got very, very few views. People, I mean, I guess it has a lot to do with the popularity. My channel wasn't popular, so I wasn't going to get a lot of views. Now, I think when I see Josh do it, when he did that 4+ minute Coltrane solo, I mean, forget about the notes. Just to memorize 4 minutes of improvised music, of that kind of music, is tremendous. I mean, it in itself. So it's kind of like a flex feat. It doesn't prove that you're a good improviser. I've heard 30+ years of students who have learned who have done transcriptions and professionals too, and when you hear them actually improvise, you know, you're wishing that you're hearing the transcription, because their improvisation muscle is a lot smaller than their ability to play the transcriptions muscle. Yeah. And I think there's a danger there too. If you have a good coach, if you're a student and you have a good coach, your coach is going to tell you, or your musical mentor is going to say, yeah, this is a means to an end. This does not earn you the actual musical stripes. It might, from a technical perspective, like when I saw somebody, there's an Italian guy I remember who, I haven't seen him post in a long time. He played a small Steinberger guitar, you know, with the small body. Yeah. And he would sit next to like a big recording desk, and he would be playing Holdsworth solo transcriptions and just nailing them.
That's that sounds like it's not Brett. It's not Brett, is it? No. This is an Italian fella. Oh yes, I know him. Oh gosh, I know him. Yeah, he used to come to me for lessons. Oh gosh, yeah. I'll send you. Yeah, he's a lovely guy. Lovely guy.
Yeah,
he's fantastic actually, and he's a pianist, you know. He's a pianist.
Really
He works for like an Italian TV company. He's the most
massive fingers, right? Like just an enormous hand,
yeah.
and
It's
able.
he
I remember seeing that when I first saw him play the transcription. I was like, now that is wow, like just the physicalness of it. Now the question is I don't want you to rate his playing on this, but I wonder how much he has been able to extrapolate from all of that work into his own music.
Well, I mean, there's several levels to that, isn't there? I mean,
Yes.
I mean, like, if you could argue that if he's enjoying doing it and it's giving him a sense of gratification and it's broadening the channel in which his musicality can flow, then it's absolutely worthwhile.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. So is it going to make him improvise better? Maybe not. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, like, I think if you're broadening,
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that's my real question, because I came from a culture where you transcribed to learn the vernacular of that style and be able to make your own sentences and paragraphs, and that was the reason for the transcription, or maybe to push your technique. It's like a pianist who plays Hanon or something like that, to improve their technical abilities. You're right. There's so many different varied levels. Maybe he doesn't want to improvise. I certainly wouldn't want to pass judgment on him or anybody else doing transcriptions.
If it's the same guy, I'm sure it's the same guy, because like he's done some amazing Holsworth transcriptions, but he came to me because of his improvisation. That was the only reason. Like, I mean, he was like, "Can I have lessons?" And he sent me some videos. I was like, "You what?" Like, Jesus. But actually, when we chatted, it was like, yeah, well, you know, fair enough. The guy, if he wants to learn how to improvise, and like if there's elements of, you know, we're in a lucky position with this internet phenomenon now, that we can literally cherry pick anyone across the world to have lessons with. I mean, we can have lessons with whoever we want, especially now. Especially now, every musician that I know is in one place, and that's at home, and they're trying to establish a career as a teacher all of a sudden rather than a player. So I mean, you know, I mean, I was saying this on Facebook the other day. It's like you always look for the positives with this stuff. Never dwell on the negatives. It's so easy to fall into that trap. You know, so, you know, if you're looking to expand, now is the time to take lessons with these people, because they actually need the work, and they need, you know, and it's like an unbelievable privilege to be able to have lessons with certain people. Like, under the normal circumstances, you'd never ever get access to some of these people. You know, I'm not going to say who it's name names, but like, there's people on the internet now who are advertising for lessons.
Yeah, when before they were untouchable.
Yeah, right.
You couldn't contact them. Yeah.
Right. So make the most of it. I mean, gosh, you know, I mean, like, but you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. But yeah, so
that's actually something that I'm doing. I'm
right.
actively trying to take a lesson from whomever. I'm a lifelong pedagogue, so I'm very interested to see how people teach. And not from an analytical point of view, but to just have the experience from people who do things better than I do, which is pretty much everything.
I'm the same. I've taken some lessons, not in guitar playing, but in sound production, in mixing, which is something I've always like thought I was all right at until you see someone who's who's really good at it, and then it's like, okay, I want a bit of that. I want to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, but again, it's the same impetus. It's like stuff that piques your attention, right?
Well, that seems to be a common thread in a lot of what you're saying, and I think that I want to underscore that, and then I want to close on something. But what I'm getting from pretty much every time I've spoken with you is that what drives you to learn anything or to pursue anything to this high degree that you have done is your love for it. You're a love junkie.
Oh, listen, I mean, we're very lucky I think it's a privilege to have something like this that you can turn to, you know. I think, and like, whether it's through design or necessity, a lot of people are drawn to these things because they're, you know, I mean, I'm not a tremendously sociable person in real life, you know. I mean, I'm perfectly polite, but I'm not comfortable. So, you know, like, playing music has always been a nice go-to, and I think a lot of musicians are the same. They're kind of slightly introverted, and I think that sort of fits with that personality trait. And I think you have to. One thing that I've had to learn how to do is to present myself a bit better, you know, in face to face. So it's like, this is not natural to me. I don't, you know, I'm not a natural presenter, or I'm not a natural communicator. So this is something I've had to work on very consciously. Like, playing is a lot more natural because I think I like, you know, I like kind of the inward focus of it. Like, you know, psychologists would call that kind of, you know, inward focus. Sort of a politically correct way of saying introverted. But, you know, so I think that's a great privilege to have that, to have something you can, like an instrument you can pick up and be honest with, and you can have a conversation with yourself, and you can explore things and externalize ideas in note form. And I think it's really interesting, like, that I'd really love to hear if there's any very articulate ways that people have described the kind of effect of music, because there's something quite indescribable about how it, you know, playing music and like how it makes you feel, and even listening to music, when you listen to stuff and you have that kind of cliched kind of hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Goosebumps, not hairs on the back of your neck. That's fear, isn't it? No, you have that fear with some things, but yeah, the whole goose pimples thing and stuff like that. It's no one's adequately described that for me, and it's like that thing. That's not necessarily that it has to be described, but, you know, it's a real privilege that we have this, that we can turn to. We can turn to playing. We can turn to music, and actually turn to musicians as well. We can talk. You can talk. I get on really well with other musicians. You know, it's just something.
That's good to know.
Yeah, but it is what it is. You know, it's like I've always got on well with other musicians. People around the music industry, not so much. But musicians are There's a lot of sharks and a lot of strange people who have ulterior motives. But musicians, yeah.
If anybody wants to purchase your PDFs of your play-alongs or anything like that, where can they get them?
Yes, one place only. It's simonpeterking.bandcamp.com. Bandcamp, as we all know, is mega, absolutely mega. It's super, and it's like they're sort of all about the artist, and the platform's absolutely wonderful, really easy to use. So simonpeterking.bandcamp.com, or if you just Google Simon Peter King Bandcamp, it should come up. And then there's tons of stuff on there. It's dead cheap. Sort of like my mantra with this stuff is to kind of make things affordable. There's no reason in charging shitloads of money for stuff, because it's far better that lots of people are using it. And
what about lessons?
Lessons, just drop me a PM so we got what is my email address? Oh God. If you go to simonpeterking.com, there's a contact form on there, and I always get them. They come straight to me. simonpeterking.com. Yeah, and I don't really do a huge amount of teaching these days, but yeah, it's worth a try. If this,
you'd be willing to take on a couple of students, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, definitely. Sorry, no. I mean, I at the moment, in particular, I'm doing mainly video editing these days, so it's
that's all right.
Yeah, it's great. It's great fun, but it is rather time consuming. So I'll do my best. If I can help, then I will.
Perfect. Well, come here. I'm really happy that you spent this time with me, and
it's a pleasure.
There's a lot of great wisdom that you've laid on us. And I guess one of the main things that I really liked is that, hey, if you like another instrument, you want to be that multi-instrumentalist, like, go for it, right?
Yeah. It's all about that thing. If it appeals to you, then that's it. You know, the decision is made for you. That's the thing. It's not a conscious decision. So yeah.
So on that note, I want some of that now. Yeah, pour me a glass too.
Yeah.
And we'll talk soon, mate. Take care of yourself.
Lovely, man. Been a
Take
pleasure.
care.
Take it
All the
easy.
best.
Bye-bye.